All right, good evening, everyone. You have no idea how happy I am to see your faces. Myself and one of our other panelists this evening were in a completely different link, wondering why there was nobody logging in. And I appreciate those of you who are sending me messages and got us on the right track. I don't know how that happened, but thank you all for letting me know. All right, and because we're running a little behind, I'm just going to keep admitting people. We're going to get going here. Do appreciate all of you being here this evening. As a reminder, this call is being recorded. This is Great Minds Session 4, focusing on recruiting and staffing your restaurants or hospitality businesses in time to reopen. And it is Tuesday, April the 6th. So just a couple of quick things to get started with. Here we go. So this evening, like I said, we're going to be focusing on staffing and recruiting. Just a reminder that this is a collection of hospitality professionals, guests. We're here to share ideas, and we're here to help each other survive and thrive through the current economic climate. Anything you take away from this call, if we can help you out, that's great. But just remember, you decide what the right thing is for your business. What works for some may not work for some others. So, you make the best decisions for your business. We have two great panelists joining us this evening. First of all, we have Neil Lurvey, who is a senior recruiter with Goodwin Recruiting. Neil joined Goodwin in January 2020 as a hospitality recruiter. Prior to that, he was a director of operations for Waterloo Ice House in Austin, Texas, and a general manager for Nuke's Eatery in Springfield, Missouri. During his tenure with Waterloo House, he was proud to have helped a well-established Austin icon receive new heights in profitability and sales growth, which is awesome. He's a graduate of the California School of Culinary Arts, where he graduated with honors. Currently resides in Las Vegas, lucky guy, with his wife Tina, an apparel designer, and his son Harrison. And when he's not keeping busy with his recruiting business, you can find Neil on the golf course. And hopefully you and I can meet there someday, Neil. And then we've got Cat Breet, who is the chief stripe changer with Arbez. Cat got her first restaurant job delivering sandwiches in a rusty stick shift truck at a tender age of 16. Her hospitality career carried her for the next 8 years in Virginia, California, Washington State, Alaska, and even across the pond to Japan. At 24, she flipped her hospitality chops into a recruiting career. Since then, she's been playing matchmaker and accelerating careers for companies and individuals all over the world. A 14-year business owner of Arbez, which is zebra spelt backwards, and she may tell you the story on that. She says her 8 years in restaurants gave her the skills, grit, and grace under pressure she desperately needed over the years. She is a global speaker, author, online course creator who hosts a LinkedIn show live twice a week, teaching people how to get more money, freedom, and fun out of work. So we're very excited to have both of them here to speak to us tonight on this very important topic. And we're going to start off with Neil. And Neil, good evening and welcome. Thank you for being here this evening.
Darren, I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you bet. Just, you've got a hospitality background, you're now in the recruiting side of things. What are some of the things that you're seeing now, and what are some of the things you're telling your clients that they need to focus on? Because I know from what I'm seeing here, there's a lot of places that are recruiting in the restaurant industry. There was even an article today that came out from National Restaurant News talking about how 176,000 people found jobs in hospitality last month, 309 the month before. It's getting harder and harder to find these people. So, how do you direct your clients, and what are some suggestions you have for those people joining us today?
Darren, this is not just a local problem. This is a problem that we see all over the country with all of our clients. I remember 5, 6, 7 years ago, you threw an ad on any job board and advertised, let's have people come in and do a job fair. I don't care where you were in the country, you could get people coming in the door. Nowadays, it is hard to get people to apply. the old-fashioned way, whether it's a job board or even, Craigslist. People are not responding in that way, and hear from everybody. And it's made the recruitment the recruitment process that much harder for folks who are just concentrating on operating their businesses and don't have the time or the resources to be able to go out and find those great people. We just noticed that we've had a lot of people leave our industry in the last year, and it's a shame. We had some great people who I'll reach out to every day, and they say, no, I got out of the industry. I'm not looking to get back in.
Right.
And so really the job pool is so much smaller than it was even a year and a half ago. And that's a lot of the difficulties that operators are having all across the country, is just really qualifying and bringing in amazing talent.
Awesome. So, I mean, you're saying this is all over, and like I said, I know I'm seeing it here, but is it worse in some areas than it used to be? Like, are there areas that were typically bad and we're seeing that, but are you surprised at some of the areas that are struggling, or should we have expected something like this to happen?
I live in Las Vegas, and Las Vegas has usually been a reasonably solid market to get some movement in. People were willing to move. And even here, even with our jobless rate right now is at about 11.5, 12%. I think that was the last number I saw. It's still hard to get folks and to get people to move. And it's not just because people left the industry. I mean, quite frankly, if people are in stable jobs right now that have been able to survive through the pandemic, they're a little nervous and a little apprehensive to make a move because they do have some stability in their life in a year that was filled with a lot of instability and a lot of ups and downs. You're a Minneapolis guy. Minneapolis is a tough market anyway. And this pandemic has not made it any easier to work in Minneapolis for sure. But there's just, I can't think of one market where it is easy. It's just, there's not one where we're just like, oh yeah, you put an ad out here, we can get everybody. Or, if we go start looking for people on LinkedIn, where people just respond immediately. It is a tough market everywhere.
Okay. Do you have kind of like a top 3 things that you would suggest to businesses that are hiring right now? What would you suggest they focus on?
I could come up with 20, but yeah, 3 things. Look, you're going to be ramping up, right? And ramping up your hiring process just like you ramped up your business when you first opened. Number 1, identify your star player, your star recruit, your number 1 draft pick, that person that will come in and be a difference maker in your operation, and search for that person. Don't box yourself in. Don't say that person is the only person that I can bring on that'll make a difference, but have that ideal candidate. Right. And really search for that person out there. Number 2, develop a really solid sourcing strategy. Have multiple channels. Make sure you're putting the job board ads out there. Go on use ZipRecruiter, use Indeed, use Craigslist, use everything that's out there to help you bring in those candidates that way. But also rely on the old school tactic of employer referrals, right? Look for the people that want to be recommended by the people who you already trust and have brought into your organization. And then don't be afraid to shameless plug, don't be afraid to contact a recruiting agency, someone who knows your market, who can just be that. What one of my partners likes to say is, just think of us as an extension of your HR department. We're not there to replace internal recruiters. We're not there to replace you, but we're just there to find you people who may not be actively searching and applying, and maybe not even actively looking on Indeed or ZipRecruiter or anything like that. We can find those people through a lot of different means. And number 3, simplify your onboarding, simplify your your interview process and speed it up. We're finding so many people who, since it is a job search seekers market, that are getting offers quickly,
Right.
and therefore the companies who are a little bit slower moving and a little bit longer interview processes, they're losing out on some great talent because other companies are just jumping at the talent that's out there.
Yeah, and I have seen that where, talking to people where they've applied for a job, they haven't heard back, and then they get an offer from somebody else, and then that place calls them and they're like surprised that they found something else. It's definitely, you need to be on top of it and moving quickly. So awesome. Guys, if you do have questions, just as we have in the past, just throw something up in the chat that you want to ask a question. I will then call you in to share your question. Cat, maybe I'll move on to you now and ask, you've heard some of the stuff that Neil has said. Your perspective is a little bit different in what you're doing right now, but what are some of the things that you're hearing from the people that you're talking to? What are some things you might suggest to our group that would help move them in the right direction to find the bodies they need and be successful with this?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, when you first reached out to me, Darren, I said, oh my gosh, I haven't slung drinks for 20 years. But then as we were chatting, I said, but wait a minute, I've spent the last 23 years teaching companies how to attract untapped talent, how to find passive candidate that their competitors aren't going after. And I have done some in the restaurant and hospitality industry. So I do have some ideas for you. First of all, I just want to really underscore what Neil said. He's giving you some terrific advice. Make a list of your top employees and figure out what's their secret sauce, what makes them really attractive. Go to them and ask for referrals. And literally, so I take it one step further than just asking people, you have any friends that might be interested? I say to them, where do you hang out? Where can I go to bump into more people like you? So literally ask them, where do you hang out online? I know none of us are really hanging out in bars much right now, but if you were to go hunting to find somebody like you who loves working in the hospitality industry, where would you be most likely to find them? So ask your best people, your favorite people, even maybe people that haven't worked with you for a couple of years. Give them a call, say hello, how's the family? And ask your favorite people for advice on where to go find some great talent. Neil, I think you mentioned tightening up your process, or maybe you didn't. So the market has shifted. This is a buyer's market. And let's be honest, there is not enough talent out there for all of you. So the early bird's going to get the chance to interview them, and the person who woos them the best is going to get the chance to hire them and keep them and retain them. And make no mistake, once they say yes to you and they come to work for you, their phone is going to continue to be ringing off the hook, and your competitors are going to be trying to woo them away. So if there's ever been a time when you need to reevaluate what you do to make your establishment a great place to work, this is the time when you've got to put the pedal to the metal and really go above and beyond to make it a great place to work. So you need to spend a little bit more time with people in the recruiting process. Put on your sales hat, woo them, give them a sense of why they're going to have fun working there. Did you know, by the way, that study after study after study over what do people want out of work, whether it's hospitality, restaurant, finance, IT, across the board, the number one thing that people want out of work is fun. So how do you do that? What if you have a serious organization where your clientele is all buttoned up? Well, that doesn't mean you can't laugh and you can't have fun along the way. So loosen up a little bit during the recruiting process and go out of your way to try and make it a little bit maybe more fun place to work. If you can't compete on price, if the tips aren't better, if they can't make more money with you, and you maybe even have some competitors that pay better, then you got to figure out how to make it a really great place to work. So that was another idea. Figure out where they hang out. One thing that I see a lot of people in restaurant and hospitality ignoring is LinkedIn. And just for giggles, I went out and did a hunt for all of you today to see how many people are on LinkedIn that might make good candidates for you. I searched for waiter and I got 2,060,000 results. I searched for cook, 455,000 cooks are hanging out on LinkedIn, and none of your competitors are reaching out to them on LinkedIn. Server, 11,000, hostess, 1,500, and on and on. You get the idea. So most of your competitors are posting on Facebook. They might be smart enough to work with Neil. Most of them aren't. So that's a little, I worked for staffing agencies for years. He's a good guy to work with. If you're looking at the price tag of using a recruiting agency, here's the question you need to ask yourself. What's it costing you to not fill that position? What's it costing you in terms of lost business, unhappy customers? I'm hearing a lot of, I saw a post on Nextdoor today. Somebody took 15 minutes out of his life to write something this long about how bad the service was at Caribou Coffee. Dude, you know, they're probably short-staffed. Give them a break, but you have to remember that's what's going on out there. So anyway, just think about that. What's the cost of not filling that position? So you're going to have to get creative. You're going to have to put on the sales hat. You're going to have to smile more. And I also, one last idea that I wanted to share with all of you is think about untapped markets. Think about people who, well, like me. So I happen to love what I do for a living. I run my own business. However, if I had been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and my kids were big enough to wipe their own bottoms and get themselves on the bus, I might be looking for something to do part-time. And I would be a terrific catch because I did wait tables and bartend my way across America for 8 years. So think about moms, stay-at-home moms. And if you were to do a little recruiting campaign and maybe an open house for stay-at-home moms who are putting the kids back on the school bus, you know, they miss working, they want to work part-time, there is a treasure trove of talent there. If you're in the Midwest, there's a company called Bus Stop Mamas. Seriously. She was a guest on my live show a few weeks ago, Bus Stop Mamas. And it is smart, hardworking moms who have bandwidth to work. Some of them have the ability to go back to work full time. In fact, a friend of mine just went into waiting tables full time because her kids are in high school. So that's an untapped market. Another couple of places for you to go hunting. What makes great restaurant employees? Impeccable customer service skills. So why not go look for customer service people who are absolutely fed up with taking grumpy customer calls on the phone? Wouldn't it be a delight for them to be able to move around and walk around, get away from the chair and become, you know, a restaurant employee? So get creative. Think about where those soft skills that you need might show up in some other careers. And if you're not sure about pay equity, there's a website that you can go to. It's called Occupation Net. So if you just Google Occupation Net, think of it like this. The Department of Labor takes taxes from us, right? And so the Department of Labor knows every single job title, job description, pay grade, you name it, from CEOs to hostesses. They put all of that data out there on the internet for us to tap into. So if I were hunting for restaurant hospitality workers right now, I'd go to ONET, Occupation Net. I would put a search in for those soft skills, customer service, friendly, hardworking, and I'd look at what's that list that comes back with from Occupation Net of other careers that have those kind of soft skills. I'd look at the pay, and if it looks like it might be a decent fit, I'd put out some job ads wooing people like that. And I'd even have a little bit of fun with it. And I'd say, hey, are you in customer service? Are you going to tear your eyeballs out if you get one more angry customer? Have you ever thought about working in the hospitality industry? You know what? We have really happy customers. Our food's fantastic. Our ambiance is great. And you could have a job that you absolutely love. Why not? You're going to have to get creative if you want to get staff in right now. So those are just a couple of things that came to mind for me that I've used over the years, by the way. It's why I started my own business and why I'm a speaker, is I was desperate for talent and I had to get creative as a director of recruiting. We started holding open houses. I started doing funky fun ads and hunting in untapped markets. So I'm just sharing ideas that have worked for me in the past and they might work for you.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, Kat.
Mhm.
You know, when that bus stop mamas, when you mentioned that to me when we were speaking earlier today, you know, it gave me a bit of a chuckle, but it's a great point. And we talked about, you know, needing to be more flexible. And I think there's a lot of people on right now who spent time with me in the Tim Hortons days. And that was a big thing we talked to the owners about, is needing to be more flexible with your shifts and you know, what you're recruiting for. But I think there's still some big opportunity for that. So, you know, don't be so rigid on, you know, it's a 3 to 11 shift. Well, you know, you got to look for these different opportunities, because if you can find somebody who can do 4 to 9, it's better than having nobody. So definitely need to look for that flexibility.
Well, and
Awesome.
Darren, on that note, there are apps and there's technology for that scheduling. Back in the day when I was supervising, it was all hand scheduling. It was a nightmare. My son works at Lifetime Fitness Cafe. He's 17, and he just goes on that app, picks up a shift. If he wants to switch it, it even allows him to negotiate with other workers. So the technology is there to make flexible staffing really easy. Darren, I don't know if you have any
Definitely.
thoughts about that.
Yeah, oddly enough, I do. I actually work with a scheduling company called Amigo that can actually do that. And it's, you know, technology. I think technology is something we need to look a lot more at in hospitality, because you need to be on the floor. You don't have the time to spend 2, 3, 4 hours making a schedule anymore. Why not utilize tools that are going to help you, you know, do your scheduling? Or, you know, maybe it's following up on you know, task and maintenance, or whatever it happens to be. There's some great tools out there, and plug for me, I can help you all find some of those. But there's definitely opportunities to make your life easier, so you can focus on the important things, which is your guests, and make sure they're taken care of, and focus on your team to make sure they're happy. Right. So definitely some great opportunities there. Thank you for saying that, Kat. Appreciate it. So guys, we've had some great things shared. Anjali, I know you've posted something. Maybe I'll bring you in if you just wanted to share your thoughts, and maybe if there's any questions that have come up as well.
Hey, Darren, sorry about that. I just had the mute button on.
All good.
Yeah, I love this topic. I mean, I could talk about recruitment forever, which you know, so I won't. But I think, you know, I just had a chat with a friend of mine out of the US. He used to be on the board of the National Restaurant Association. So he's done a ton of great work with a lot of major brands in the US. I'm doing some stuff with him here actually in Canada. And he's talking about the recruitment strategies that he's implementing in the United States, and also the challenges that we're having here in Canada. I see that here, and there is a little bit of a difference, but I see that here in Canada, because we have CERB and we still have, you know, obviously a ton of government kickbacks. And I've seen this with my son and other people in the industry as well, that, you know, even if there's a great value proposition to come and work for an organization, it's still a struggle, because there's a couple of risk factors. I mean, number one is they're concerned themselves about, you know, getting COVID or getting ill, or, you know, having to be work short staffed, because, you know, some organizations are, I mean, we have to look at the pains. I mean, some organizations are cutting back intentionally, because, I mean, I get it. It's the restaurant industry. I mean, they're worried about bottom line. And, you know, and I know from the restaurant industry that the first thing that usually gets cut are the things that you think you can stretch it out a little bit further, right? I mean, you can't. So that's staffing. And, you know, I come from the staffing industry. I've had my own staffing company. I've done recruitment for, you know, hundreds of brands. And I think that's part of the challenge is you have to answer the pain and the why, you know. So if I'm going to attract the best talent to come to work for my restaurant, or for my organization in hospitality, I think it's really considering, you know, what is your unique value proposition, and always be recruiting. I think, you know, I've been a business owner in the past, and obviously I'm now. So, you know, I don't have to hire people in hospitality right now. But when I was, I mean, if I met somebody that was super friendly, or I had a customer that was really fantastic and I got along well with, I'm like, hey, why don't you come in and, you know, do a shadow day? And I think part of it is if there's somebody that you like, and I mean, what's the cost of hiring? And those are things to consider right now as well. Is it a couple $100s? Is it a couple $1,000? I mean, just to bring somebody on, and give them a try. If you really, really like them, they go through the process, you interview them, you do a reference check. If I'm talking about entry level labor, right? So you don't want to have a really long drawn out process or be asking the wrong questions. At the end of the day, what we learned is, can you engage them? Are they engaging you? Are they, somebody that you could see, interacting well with your customers? Give them a try for a week, 2 weeks, see how it goes, or have them come in for a shadow day or something like that, just to kind of see if it's a good fit or not. Right. I don't know. I feel like right now people are very skittish. I'm hearing that here in Canada that just a lot of people are concerned about going back into the industry and into hospitality. And quite frankly, they're afraid of being worked to the bone or getting sick. Yeah. So it's putting those feelers in place, or not feelers, but putting those kind of markers in place. Like if you're going to be advertising, then speaking to that pain. And then the second part of that is when you're recruiting, hiring a little bit faster, to the point that was made previously as well. So, I think there's lots of opportunity, but they're not as engaged as they used to be when it comes to the recruiting process.
Yeah, and some good points. Thanks, Anjali. Canada and the US are obviously in very different places right now. The vaccination programs down here are moving forward very quickly. I know I've talked to a few of you. I mean, I can't even go home right now because the borders are closed. I've had both my vaccinations. My parents only got their first one this past weekend. Right. So we're in different places, and that's definitely playing out. But I think even down here, there is some fear about going back into it. But your comment about the fear of being overworked, I think is something that, we need to keep in mind as well, because I've seen it this past week. I went out to a couple of places where, I had the one server at one place that I've had served me before. I usually get great service, and it was a horrible night. Table was dirty. My drink order was wrong 3 times. And this is not a new person. This is somebody who knows what they're doing. But the place was packed, like wall to wall people. They were overwhelmed because they were short. And then I had it again this weekend at another restaurant where a young girl who was doing a fabulous job. And I made sure I commented to her owner how great of a job she was doing. But I could tell she was flustered because she's picking up a table that another server missed. She's trying to, take care of the big group she had. So that's a real concern that we need to consider when we're doing this. So maybe we need to look at different ways of opening as well, and not just go full bore, because people are dying to come out. They want to come out. We need that social interaction. You open the floodgates too soon, you're going to overwhelm those people, and there's a chance you may lose them. So
yeah, Darren, I just wanted to say I have a client he owns a really busy restaurant in Niagara Falls. His family has been in the restaurant industry for over 50 years. And I've asked him what his secrets to success are, because I look at him as a mentor in hiring in this industry. They've owned a number of restaurants. And he said, when it comes to these times, when it's open and close, what he does is he schedules his staff in shorter shifts. So if they're willing to do it, he schedules them in kind of like sprints, if you will. And he said he also pays above the minimum wage. So he offers them incentives to come in depending on how much notice they're getting if they are short staffed. But he's gone as far as, if a person has been with them 10 or 15 years, that he will offer to buy them things like, used vehicles and things like that, and take care of his staff. So his turnover rate is extremely low. I know not everybody can do that, but he said, having to have one of the highest competitive spaces in Canada, like if you're in tourism capital and having to run a restaurant where that your competitors are shopping you, his average length of employment with his employees are, I think, 8 or 9 years. Like he has very, very low turnover. And he said it's really because he treats the staff right. It's kind of like back to basics. But he said during COVID, he will not compromise with his staff's health. So he was actually, I'll send you the article to this. He was featured in the paper here because I guess some guests, the anti-maskers were coming in and they were challenging them on, no mask, no service. So he actually published a sign in the door and said, no shirt, no shoes, no mask, no service, no questions. Like, he's not here to make a political statement, but he's not going to compromise the health of his employees.
Right.
And he made a stand for that. So, it's caused a bit of a line in the sand, if you will, but he's made it very clear that his employees come first, and, they applaud him for it. So, they're loyal to him.
Awesome. No, that's great. And creating that proper culture and atmosphere within the restaurant is huge. And not just restaurant, any business, right? Because if you have that right culture, people will work harder. They'll do a little bit more because they know you've got their back, and there's the respect and that family feel. So great. Neil, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, I'd love to piggyback off that. One of the questions that I ask any candidate before I send them over to a client is, what's important to you? What do you want out of your next career? And I try to get them to sum it up into the top 3 things they look for. And more quality of life is in the top 3. And knowing that the company that they work for cares about them. Mm-hmm. And, I think that the value proposition that Angela brought up is so important. There's a reason, if you're in QSR, there's a reason why it seems like Chick-fil-A's in the States especially don't have that much trouble sourcing for talent, especially for hourly employees.
Right.
And whether you like their, what they stand for or not, they train amazingly well, and they make it so they are a go-to place that parents want to send their kids for their first jobs, mm-hmm. and that kids want to go to and work at, because they are getting taught how to work properly and how to be leaders. Not just even as an hourly employee, as someone who cleans up the dining room, they're being taught leadership skills there. And they are a company that people want to work for, and, right. and there's value for even an entry-level hourly employee.
Yeah, and what, I like you.
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I like, oops, there it is. Chick-fil-A is definitely one of the ones that I'll revert to, because they really set a high bar when it comes to the hospitality they provide. And, your comment, I was actually going to ask the question, and it was a perfect segue. So thank you for that, Neil. How important is training in the recruiting process? I'd love to hear from some other people who are joining us this evening. What do you think about training as part of the recruiting process? Is it something that you think people coming in are interested in? Or is it a big part of retention? Anybody like to give some feedback on that? I know for me, it's definitely something that I feel is important, because they want to know that they're going to come in. Even if you have that person who's coming into your restaurant or your hotel or whatever it happens to be with 10 years of experience, they're not going to know your processes. They're not going to know the facility they're working in. You still have to set them up to succeed. If you just bring them in, and I know we're all guilty of doing this sometimes in the past in our restaurants, where you need them on the floor, so you're rushing them through. Or you're sticking them in the dish pit because you don't have time to train them because you're out on the floor busy, and they lose interest quickly. Mm-hmm. So we definitely, I think need to look at how we're onboarding, and you touched on this earlier as well, Neil, and so did you, Kat. You need to have those things put together. You can't just, we'll just see what works and go with it. It's not working anymore. If you want to have those staff that are sticking around for 8+ years, like Angie was saying, which is awesome. And I know I've got some old Tim Hortons owners who have had people who've been around for 25+ years, which is just, they've obviously created a culture, that is positive, because gone are the days of you get a job, you stay in that job, no matter what. My first hospitality job outside of university was the Royal York Hotel. I worked the midnight shift, and we had a guy that worked the door there. His name was Dougal McDougall, and I'm not making that up. Dougal McDougall worked the door at the Royal York Hotel for 45 years. That was his job. you're not going to find people unless you create an atmosphere that they're coming in, they love their job, they feel they're being treated with respect and supported, and they're given opportunity to become everything they want to become, right?
Hey,
So
Darren, can I chip in on that?
you bet.
So I had a guest on my LinkedIn Live show a few weeks ago who just wrote a book, Great Leaders Know How to Make Sure Monday Morning Doesn't Suck. Now, obviously, it was written for the business world, but basically, he's saying you got to pay attention and make sure your leaders are good leaders. And I'm speaking from, my goodness, my first restaurant. I was 16 years old. I was young, dumb, insecure, but bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and just thrilled to be there. And the chef was a capital A, ends with E, and a big fat exclamation point. He was a jerk, and he treated everybody so badly. I quit. And I got to tell you, I made really happy customers. I made great money, and I took my skills elsewhere because I didn't want to work for him. So
Right.
if you are with us today and you are a leader in a hospitality organization and you are desperately afraid of getting rid of one of your senior people because they're really good at what they do, you need to find the courage to cut them. Because if you don't find the courage to get rid of that bad apple, and in his book, Eric Harkins says, a-holes are always a-holes. Lesson number 3, you got to get rid of them because they are creating that toxic work culture. And to Darren's point, and even Neil, people are not going to put up. That's what's different post-COVID. People have learned how precious life and family is. They're not going to put up with that. So anyway, I just had to share that.
No, that's awesome. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. So, okay, guys, again, if you want to ask a question or if you have something you want to share, just pop a little note in the chat and I'll invite you in. But, you know, it is starting to get a little concerning that people seem to just be jumping onto this because, you know, with all the changes that have been happening around vaccinations, at least down here, you know, and Canada's not as far ahead, but you know it's coming, right? This is we're too many people are doing that wait and see thing where you really need to start developing that plan and getting onto it now. Right? Don't hold off and say, well, you know, let's see what next month has. You're going to need to develop your plan and then adjust as it goes forward because, you know, look what happened in British Columbia. Everything was wide open and they shut them down in an instant. It can go the other way too. They can reopen them in an instant. What's going to happen to those people? And of course, my dog wants to say hi to everybody walking by. I apologize for that, everybody. 120 pounds of annoying. But anyways, we need to really look at that stuff and do a little bit better job of planning and determining things ahead of time and then adjusting as we go, because the gut feel, as much as it's still an important part of what you're doing, and you should never lose the gut feel, you got to have good plans as well. So you know, just some other food for thought on there that I think you know, people should consider. I'd love to hear from some of the Canadians on the line. I know you got a bunch of them, and I don't want to volunteer somebody to come up here, but you know, what are you guys seeing? What are you seeing as the challenges? I know Ontario, it's a mess. You guys are in shutdown, and I don't know if Adam or Neil, you know, Neil, you're in a bit of a different space than some with what you're doing. But you know, what are you guys seeing, and what are you doing to plan to be ready for this?
I think a couple of people said, Darren, I think part of the fear is, you know, we're in airports and particularly in the US, we're having a really hard time finding staff, and it's the fear. It's the fear that you're now really on the front lines. And, you know, I was watching I think what's really hard for people right now is watching the baseball game yesterday in Texas, and you'd think that the pandemic is over. And then
Right.
you know, I was just in the US and got back and did the 3-day hotel stay with a guard outside my room, and you know, getting checked on by the government here in Toronto. And meanwhile, in Texas, I think there was a handful of people with masks on, and otherwise it was just kind of a free for all. So I think it's hard for people to get their heads around: is this over? Is it not over? What does it mean for me as a frontline employee? I mean, how would you like to be selling popcorn at that stadium yesterday? That would be really difficult if you had older people at home with you and things. So I think, you know, the industry needs to really take a look at what are we doing? What are we asking people to put themselves through? And I understand that as leaders, we need to make sure that we're mitigating that, but there's a bigger thing going on here that's really, I think, hard to get our heads around.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I didn't see the game, but I saw some of the pictures, and it is scary. I mean, I've had the vaccinations and I would still be wearing my mask in that type of scenario because you just never know. There's too much unknown out there. We're still learning a bunch of stuff. So, yeah, I think it is definitely playing into things, Neil. Some good points. Anybody else from my Canadian crew who might want to share? I don't know, Mr. Preston or Mr. Murphy or Mr. Baldea. Yeah, I can see you guys. No, you look at you're all being silent. You're gonna make. There you go, Sean.
Yeah, I'll go for it. You know, it's interesting in Ontario, we're just under another lockdown, but we seem to be kind of coming out of it with the Tim's brand. You know, seeing positive same-store sales is unusual, but you're rolling over kind of the initial pandemic from last year. But what was interesting, we went through a recruiter to bring in some managers, and you know, we thought, hey, look, you know, this is the right time. You got kind of the pick of the lot, but we made I think a mistake. We put somebody that was very strong in an afternoon position where I think she really wanted to be daytime. And as things got a little bit better, guess what? We couldn't retain her. And so you go through a recruiting agency, you pay a pretty good fee for it. You find some good quality talent, but I think the mentality of just thinking that, well, we'll take advantage of the situation, it's only short term, because and you know, when things get better, that talent's going to be moving on to where they want to be. So
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and that goes back to some of the earlier points too, that, you know, we need to be flexible. You know, if that person is available for a certain shift and it's what they're looking for, they're probably not going to stick around if they're not getting what they wanted. So yeah, good point. Thanks, Sean. Mohammed, I believe you're joining us from the UAE. What are things like over there? Would you mind opening up your mic and sharing some thoughts from your perspective? If you can hear me. Oh, I think we lost him. That's what I get for volunteering people, calling people out. Well, you know what, guys, again, I think that we've had some, oh, yep. Hello? Sorry, I thought I heard somebody. We're really in a time period where there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of fear. There's a lot of false information. There's a lot of real information, but it's confusing and it's making it more difficult for us. The one thing that we are seeing more down here again than in Canada is things are starting to reopen. And we need to be more creative in what we're doing to find the good bodies we need. Because if you're going to invest the time and you're going to invest the money in recruiting and in training, you want that to work, right? You want those people to stick around with you for an extended period of time. So it's again, putting that plan together to make sure that you have those things so that you can do that is going to give you a better chance of succeeding. You know, I think what we don't utilize enough is each other in this business, right? And that's why this started in the first place, is because there was so much of the negative news out there. I wanted to start sharing some of the positive ideas because I know there's some really smart people in this industry who have ideas and best practices to help those that are struggling get through. And I think we need to do a better job as leaders in this industry to educate the people out there that it's a great way to start learning how to be in the workforce, but there's also opportunities for amazing careers. There's a lot of us online right now who have been in this business for a very long time and have done pretty good as a result of it. There are great careers in this industry. And I think too many people see this as their first job, right? They don't see that the beyond, right? They don't see that. I mean, there's some, I'm sure Jose Sil's doing just fine running RBI. Right?
Sorry.
Angeli liked that.
Darren, you're making me laugh. Oh my God. No, okay, so I got called out for this. So on LinkedIn, when Tim Hortons was announcing like all of the new recent updates and stuff like this, and this isn't a Tim Hortons thing, but I had posted, people need to realize that a lot of the people who had become leaders within Tim Hortons, to your point, or had moved on to become leaders in other companies, had started off working literally in the warehouse, the front counter, or back of house, and they work their way up, right? And
Yep.
and that's not just Tip, that's any company, and that's okay. I'm going to sound really old when I say this, but that's the problem with a lot of young kids today, is that they don't, they don't realize, like, it truly is like, make your mark and stand out, and be willing to maybe give a little bit more, or and I think that's, and we all have kids about the same age at this point, you and I. So it's like, no, you've kind of got to step up a little bit. And there's that fear of that give and take, but it's so true. And that there's such an opportunity still, and that's the thing, is that a lot of the entry level workers need to realize. And so one of the comments that I got back, and so somebody DM'd me on that comment on LinkedIn and said, I've worked for this location and that location, and I've worked for other QSRs, and they're all the same. And, they treated me horribly. And I'm like, the attitude is part of the problem, right? And that's the thing. It's really the, you can't fix somebody's bad attitude, right? And so part of that comes from bringing it to the table every day, being motivated. And how do you inspire that? And I think what I've learned, that, and I think it's really just from working on a lot of different succession plans and interviewing a lot of Tim's franchisees and other franchisees, and learning like their secrets of how they kept team members so long, was really, it was you need to inspire somebody to the will to want to be there, right? So when you're thinking about your talent and your team members, and wherever they're at, ages and stages, if they're young, or if they're in their 20s or their 30s, and to the point that was made earlier, it's considering, these things change, and there is an opportunity to keep somebody for a long period of time, or to get them in for a short period of time if that's what you need. But it's considering where they're at, how can you keep them motivated, and what are the steps that you can do to make sure that, they're coming in and they really want to work for you. And I'm obviously, if you're not engaging them in a way that's meaningful, and if you're working them to death, I mean, they're not going to want to come back. I mean, they're going to run out but we've heard stories of them running out the back door, and
I've seen it.
never returning. So it's,
those are great points. And you made me think of something else, that I was having this conversation on Clubhouse. I think it was yesterday, or maybe it was Sunday, on one of the hospitality groups that I'm in. And when you think, you say young people today, well, you think about where those young people today are. Most of them are coming into the workforce at 18 plus years old. Because before that, it's school and it's extracurricular and all that stuff. I had my first job in grade 1. I was delivering newspapers. Now, it wasn't child labor. I wasn't forced to by my parents. I wanted to do it. At 11 years old, I know people down here don't know. You guys ever heard of Dickie D? I know the guys in Canada have. I was riding a bicycle around, ringing bells with the front container full of ice cream, and selling ice cream in the small town I lived at. I was 11 years old. Are you going to give an 11-year-old kid today a bunch of ice cream and money and let them ride around your neighborhood? No, they don't have the opportunities. So these kids aren't coming. They're not stupid. They're just inexperienced. And we need to realize that when we are setting them up, we need to teach them. We have the great opportunity to make them into the best possible employee they can be. We can mold them. And I think sometimes we need to change our approach so that we're doing that and giving them the right setup, because they may stick around with you for a long time. They may stay with you until they go to university and then go off to start their career. But that's positive turnover. If you can get somebody in, they can work for grade 10, 11, 12, and then you're sending them off to start their university and go on to their career, you've set them up and they will never forget that. I'm pretty sure everybody, I know a lot of you can, but just about everybody on this call had an experience probably in the restaurant business, whether it was QSR or, a family restaurant or that kind of thing. And you can remember some of the skills and tools you learned through that, and you're still using them today. So we've got a great opportunity. Cat raises her hand. Yeah. So, this is what we can provide. And again, I think we need to utilize each other. We need to talk to each other about, what we're doing that's working. If you're doing something that's not working, ask your neighbor. I mean, as much as you're competing with that guy across the street, you're part of the same community. You're both trying to provide for that community. Talk to each other. That's what this was all about, is to get us talking to each other and helping each other out. And, I'm hoping that we've been able to share some good ideas with you guys tonight. I think we've come up with some great stuff. And, Neil and Kat, you guys have shared some great things with us tonight. And I do appreciate your time. It was great having you. Yeah.
Sorry, if I could just jump in. I just wanted to say that there's a group of employees, I think, that are looking for more stability, and the entertainment sector, I think, is a group that the folks in this room can look to. I know from my past background, we had shuttered a whole family entertainment business, and that group of employees, I'm still in contact with them, but the thing that they tell me time and time again is that they're not looking to get back into entertainment,
right,
just because of the instability. And I think they're looking for things that, are stable, and restaurants, to me, is a shoo-in for them. I've seen a lot of them transfer into the restaurant industry. So I think if people are looking for, the similar type of demographic, then, if you have connections out in the entertainment world, that's somewhere where you could be looking.
And
well,
Darren,
you know what, Sean, that's great.
if I can
Sorry,
throw
what was that?
one more
Yeah, you
group
bet.
at you. Look at the overqualified. There's 71.6 million baby boomers in the United States right now. That's
Thank you, Neil.
from 57 to 75. Don't look at their resume and say they would never want to work here. They're taking a step back in their career. Maybe they want to take a step back in their career. Talk to them. They can bring that
to take a step back
ability that you need for your business.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. And I know I have hired people who are at that stage of their life, and I have heard more than I'd like to admit that I'm overqualified, which we all know what that means. But, these are people, what they're looking, it's more for the social than it probably is the actual employment side of things in some cases, right? And they're going to have experience, they're going to have professionalism, they're going to have ability. And it's going to, you're right. We cannot forget about that demographic. It is definitely something that we can benefit from. And Sean, I wanted to go back a little bit to what you were talking about, because I think there is, when you hear about other places that have closed down, whether it's in entertainment or a restaurant or any business, there may be an opportunity to reach out and say, hey, we've got openings. If any of your team are interested, we'd be more than happy to meet with them. Again, it's that community piece. I know I did that with there's a restaurant group down here called Bonfire that shut down all their places. I reached out to them and said, hey, we're hiring if anybody's interested. So when you hear that kind of stuff, because it's unfortunately still going on, reach out. Because you may, even if you find one or two people, it's one or two more than you had right now. Right. So I appreciate you bringing that up, Sean.
No problem.
Retail too, a lot of retail stores that are shutting down, and retail folks make great hospitality folks as well.
Yeah.
So, hey, Darren, can I share? I just realized I've got a super guest for you all to tune into this Thursday.
Okay.
On my LinkedIn Live show. Cindy Novotny is my guest, and she's been flying around the world teaching restaurant and hospitality executives and teams how to be more productive and successful. And she's coming in on Thursday. Now, she's not teaching hospitality industry stuff. She's telling her own story.
Right.
But for those of you that are restaurant owners, restaurant leaders, I think her message will be fun for you. So anyway, I just posted there in the chat. You just go to my LinkedIn profile. You can follow me. You can connect with me, and I go live every Tuesday and Thursday. So it'll be 9 Eastern, 8 a.m. Central, 6 a.m. Pacific this Thursday.
Awesome. Thanks, Kat. I appreciate that. Yeah, guys, and if you want to, connect with anybody, you can reach out to me as well. Most of you have my contact, but you can reach out to the Great Mind Session email, greatmindsessions@gmail.com, and I can get you connected to people as well, and so you can get some more information. Guys, we're coming up on 6 o'clock, which is our 1 hour. I want to say thank you to both Cat and Neil for taking the time to share with us this evening. It's greatly appreciated. And for all of you for being on with us today. Like I said earlier, this is being recorded. I will be sharing this out with everybody who is on the call and registered through LinkedIn and my Facebook and YouTube page as well. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn as well, and you'll make sure you get all this content going forward. So guys, May 4th is the next one. Working on a couple of potential topics. One of them may be franchising and when is it right for your business, but there's something else that I'm working on as well that I may switch that to. So I'll send that out shortly. But guys, thank you very much for your time this evening. I really appreciate it. And I wish you all a very successful April. Let's hope there's not too much snow coming, and we'll see you all in May at the next Great Mind Session. Have a great evening, everybody. Thank you so much.